Okay, so have you read Gone Girl? Like, really read it. Because this book, it kind of messes with you. It sticks in your brain,
Yeah.
even after you've finished it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to get into today, right? We're going to, like, deep dive into Gone Girl, into Gillian Flynn's writing,
Yeah.
and why this book is still, like, so captivating, even all these years after it came out.
Right, and it really grabs you right from the start, right? You think it's going to be a typical missing wife story, but then it just subverts everything you think you know about thrillers.
Yeah.
It's not just a straightforward mystery, right? Flynn starts weaving this web of deception, and she does it through both Nick and Amy, like telling their own sides of the story.
Yeah, and it's not just, like, their voices that you can't fully trust, right? Like,
Yeah.
the whole way the book is put together, the structure keeps you guessing.
Yeah.
You're seeing Nick, like, trying to look innocent when his wife disappears, but then, bam, we're thrown back in time with Amy's diary. And those entries, well, they don't exactly paint a rosy picture of their perfect marriage, do they?
No, not at all. And that's where Flynn is just brilliant. You know, it's not just about the big twist, which we'll get to that, but it's those little things, you know,
Yeah.
the foreshadowing, the pacing. She keeps you off balance the whole time.
Right.
Like, remember how Amy talks about Nick, how he always seems to be performing even when it's just the two of them?
Yeah.
It seems like a small detail at first, but after you know what really happened to Amy, it takes on a whole new meaning.
Whoa, it's like she's planting these little seeds of doubt from the very beginning, right?
Exactly.
And the crazy thing is, you know, even when you know the twist, when you go back and reread those early chapters, those tiny details, they suddenly become huge.
Yeah, they're like warning signs that you just didn't see before, and that's what makes Gone Girl so great to read again, even when you know it's coming.
Okay.
But beyond the structure, even beyond the unreliable narrators, the thing that really makes this book amazing are the characters, especially Amy Dunn. She's a victim, but she's also a mastermind and a cultural critic, all in one.
Oh, for sure. Okay, we got to talk about the cool girl monologue, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's like the most iconic part of the book.
Yeah.
It's like this raw, powerful statement about all the impossible things society expects from women.
Right.
But it also shows us so much about Amy, about how angry she is and how far she'll go to push back against those expectations.
Exactly. It's the key to understanding her. You can't just call her crazy or manipulative and be done with it.
Right.
I mean, she is those things, but there's more to it, right?
Yeah.
She's a product of this culture, you know?
Yeah.
The same culture that puts women on a pedestal and then tears them down. And what she does, as twisted as it is like her way of fighting back, her way of taking control of her own story.
You know, it's funny you say that, crazy and manipulative. Those are the words I hear people use about Amy all the time, especially after the big reveal.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think those labels are, like, too simple?
Maybe. I mean, they're part of it, but they don't tell the whole story of who Amy is. And you have to remember, we're seeing her mostly through Nick's eyes for a big chunk of the book.
Right.
And Nick, well, let's just say he's not the most reliable narrator. What Flynn does so well is make us question our own ideas about women in these stories. Who gets to decide what's crazy and what's just a woman reacting to a world that's not fair?
Yeah, that's deep. It's like she's showing us our own biases, right?
Exactly.
We're so quick to label women who don't fit into neat little boxes.
Yeah.
And Amy, she definitely does not fit in any box.
No, she breaks the mold. And in doing that, she shows us how messed up our ideas about gender roles and relationships really are.
Well,
But to really understand Amy, we have to talk about the other half of this whole toxic situation, right? Nick Dunn.
yes, Nick,
Hmm.
the charming but totally unreliable husband. What's interesting about him is he's not like a villain, you know, not in the classic sense, but he
No.
is flawed. Oh, is he flawed? And those flaws, together with everything Amy's doing, well, they create this, like, perfect storm of dysfunction.
And Flynn writes him in such a clever way because he knows what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
He knows he's putting on a show, knows he's not being totally honest, but he can't stop.
Right.
He's stuck trying to live up to this image, this idea of who he should be, both for himself and everyone else.
It makes you wonder, though, was any of it real? Like, did he actually love Amy? Or was their whole relationship just a big act?
That's the question that hangs over the whole book.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a simple answer. You can love someone and be disgusted by them at the same time, right?
Yeah.
You can be drawn to their darkness, but also terrified of it. And that's what makes their relationship so fascinating and so destructive.
Okay, we've been kind of dancing around the big twist, I know.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I want to go back to something you said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The pacing.
Right.
Gone Girl is like a slow burn,
Yeah.
but it's also like a very carefully built explosion. Like, it's going to blow up, you just don't know when.
And that's what makes the twist in the middle of the book so powerful. It's not just there to shock you. It comes from everything that came before it. All those little clues, all those hints, they all lead to this one big revelation. Amy planned her own disappearance.
Oh, it's like the rug is pulled out from under you. But at the same time, you kind of knew it was going to happen, right?
Exactly. And that's where we'll pick up next time.
Oh, can't wait.
We're going to dive into what happens after that twist, how Amy pulled it all off, and what that really messed up ending actually means.
Buckle up, listeners.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Okay, so last time we were talking about that, huge reveal, right? Amy, she didn't just disappear. She planned the whole thing.
I know, right? Like, everything you thought you knew about the book just flipped.
It's amazing how Flynn does that structurally. It's almost like, boom, new book, but you're still holding the same one.
Yeah, totally.
And remember how in the beginning with Amy's diary, you kind of felt bad for her?
Oh, yeah. Like, you're thinking, Nick, dude, what are you doing?
Right, exactly. But now, Joe, knowing she made it all up to frame Nick, those same diary entries, they're creepy.
Oh, yeah.
They show you how manipulative she is, on another level.
Right.
Remember we were talking about her being a mastermind? Well, this is where you see it in action.
Yeah.
The details, how she uses the media to make Nick look bad, it's scary almost.
I know. But I have to admit, part of me was like, dang, girl, you're good, you know? It's so bold what she did.
Oh, absolutely. And Flynn is so good at walking that line. You almost root for Amy. You see why she's so angry, so hurt. But then there's that coldness underneath.
Yeah.
Remember that line where Amy says, men always underestimate how far a woman will go to fix things.
Oh, yeah.
Chilling, right? Because it speaks to real stuff, how women are treated unfairly, but also how Amy takes it to this crazy extreme.
And that connects back to the whole cool girl thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like Amy's taking all their anger about how women are supposed to be and turning it into a weapon.
Exactly. It's messed up, but in a way, it's like she's taking power back. And it makes you think, right? How much of what we see as women being vulnerable is actually them playing a role, because they have to survive in a world that doesn't always treat them fairly.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that's a lot to unpack.
It is.
But back to the story itself. Once the truth is out there, Nick and Amy, the way they interact, it totally changes. It's like now they're playing this psychological chess match, each one trying to outsmart the other. The stakes are crazy high.
Right. Their marriage was always kind of fake, right? They were both performing for each other. But now it's like that, but times 1,000.
Yeah.
They're both lying, both manipulating, but they know the other one is doing it too. It's so tense, you can't stop reading.
And then the ending.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about the ending. It's like you're not sure if you were rooting for the right person the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Amy, she gets what she wanted, right? She's back home. She won. But did she really?
Right.
And Nick, he's stuck. He has to be the good husband again, even though he knows what she is. Is that a win? Or is it something much darker?
It's so hard to say. I mean, you could argue Amy won. She tricked everyone, even Nick. But she's also trapped, right, in this marriage with a guy who knows all her secrets, all the awful things she did.
Exactly. And that's what makes Flynn's ending so good. There are no easy answers. You're left feeling unsettled, Is it better to be alone? Or to be with someone, even if it's toxic, if it's all fake?
And Nick staying, knowing everything she did, it's like he's become a prisoner of his own image. He needs people to see him as the good guy, even if it means he's miserable.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not just love or even fear that keeps him there. It's about control. He needs to control how people see him. And that makes him, in a way, just as manipulative as Amy, just in a different way.
Yeah, it's like they're both, I don't know, playing these parts in this big messed up play.
Yeah.
And we're all watching. Like the whole world is the audience.
Right. And that's another thing that makes Gone Girl so smart. It's not just about this one couple, right?
Right.
Flynn is also talking about how obsessed we are with true crime, with scandals. We love to see people fall apart.
Yeah. And think about all the different ways the media showed Nick. First, he's the sad husband. Then he's the bad guy. Then he's the guy who stays with his crazy wife. It's like the headlines kept changing as the story went on.
Exactly. And that shows how quickly people change their minds,
Yeah.
right? We're so easily influenced by what we see and hear, especially now with social media where everything spreads so fast.
Yeah, totally. It makes you think, how much of what we believe is actually true and how much is just, I don't know, a made-up story to make us think a certain way?
Those are questions you keep thinking about even after you finish the book. And I think that's what makes Gone Girl so powerful. It's not just entertaining, it makes you think. It's like a thriller, but also a commentary on society, a psychology lesson, and a warning all at the same time.
So we've covered a lot, right? The characters, the twists, what it says about society. But let's talk about how Flynn writes. It's not just what she says, but how she says it.
Right. Her writing is so sharp, so witty. Even when she's describing something awful, she does it in this like calm way that makes it even creepier. And she's amazing at building suspense, you know? It's like she's slowly turning up the heat until you can't take it anymore.
Yeah, it's the kind of book you want to read out loud,
Yeah,
just to hear how the words sound.
totally. And that's what makes it more than just a regular thriller. It's a book that you want to talk about, figure out, argue about.
So we've gone deep into Gone Girl, explored everything, the characters, the themes, everything. If someone asked you, should I read this book? What would you say?
I'd say read it because it's a masterclass in storytelling. Read it because it will challenge everything you think you know about relationships, about men and women, about truth. Read it because you won't forget it.
And maybe, just maybe, after you read it, you'll look at the people around you a little differently, even the people you think you know really well.
Right. Because as Gone Girl shows us, everyone has secrets. And sometimes those secrets can be really dangerous.
Well, that's our deep dive on Gone Girl. Definitely a book that makes you think and maybe keeps you up at night. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into a book that's got everyone talking.